everybody, it is Monica Bodierski here. I'm here to talk to you about the Shadowland Tarot, which I created fairly recently, this last spring of 2020, released by Red Feather Mind, Body, and Spirit, an imprint of Schiffer Publishing. So, I believe we had one heck of a weekend just very recently, like yesterday, and I want to say Happy Indigenous Peoples Day, Happy Father's Day. I also want to say I hope you enjoyed the solstice. It is now officially summer in the Northern Hemisphere, the dark moon, as well as the eclipse. So, what a jam-packed weekend we had. A lot of introspection, a lot of reflection going on there. The energies were certainly right for awareness, along with a lot of introspective work. So I hope that was good for you. Alrighty, so let's take a look at something I mentioned last week I was going to do, which is the mailbag. And I don't mean that in a gendered way. I mean all the questions that I get asked, that a lot of people ask the same questions. So I'm going to answer them in a public forum here because you may be thinking the same thing, or you may have the same question. If you have questions, by the way, besides this, or these ones on this whole list here, I have a few. Please feel free to email them to me or leave them in the comments below, Facebook, Messenger, wherever. I tend to gather and collect all of them from social media and either send an email back to you if it's a very unique question, or if it's something that quite a few of you have asked, I'll answer them here for you. Okay, so let's begin. Question number 1. How long did it take you to make the Shadowland Tarot? Well, that's difficult because a lot of artists will tell you that you pick things up and you put them down frequently and you're not necessarily keeping track. We often have a lot of side hustles and we juggle a lot. So it is kind of tricky, but overall I would say 78 pieces of artwork, which includes a lot of sketching out of the ideas first, and pen and ink and watercolor, and then a book. What a painful birthing process that was for me. Maybe some of you have written books before and it's not so difficult. I don't really have a gauge. I can only speak from my own personal experience that 200 pages of a book was a little more daunting than 78 pieces of art. Okay, so I'd say about a year. Okay, alrighty. And was it hard? I think I just answered the part about the book. Was it hard? It was challenging. I think it's hard to do any major project that you put a lot of yourself into, because you're not always certain where you're being universal and maybe objective and reaching a wider audience, and where you're just rambling. So it is more in the editing process, I think, and organization when you're doing a how-to. I don't really know how it works for fiction. I would imagine that seems really hard to me too. But this was a how-to book, and yeah, I would say it was very challenging at times. You need stretches of uninterrupted time, I think. At least I do. Maybe you're okay. Maybe because I'm used to making art, I can pick it up and put it down. But with writing, I found I needed more uninterrupted time, which is difficult with the number of contracts I juggle. So yeah, it was, but it was very rewarding, I must say, and satisfying. Well, let's try number 3 here. Why? Oh, okay. Why do your characters have no pupils in their eyes, or a blank stare? Okay, blank stare. I think some of you and some of the reviews have already kind of caught on that I have quirky art. It is in a sketchy style. The characters are very unusual. And I didn't particularly want them to be depicting live people. They're spirits and they live in a fictitious place called Shadowland. So That was one reason. The other is because I'd like you to put in your own expression somewhat. Now, I have been told by a good friend that they are highly expressive. It's probably through body language because there's no pupils. But that is the reason. Okay. And, you know, it was both stylistic, just because I thought it was fun, as well as having a component of otherworldliness and you being able to make up your own ideas about the eyes. Okay. What else do we have here? Okay. Yes, number 4 is, why is there hair covering their faces in some cards? The hair thing. That's interesting. I'm a bit of an introvert, though you probably wouldn't notice that. You know, I talk a lot in public. That doesn't mean I'm not an introvert. And sometimes, you know, I harken back to those heady days when I had bangs down to about here. I do tend to let hair into my face a bit. Also, it's not just about introversion in the aspect of being shy, but inner sight. So when you're doing spiritual work, at least in my practice, it isn't uncommon to cover your eyes or be in the dark or have a cloak or a hood, because it kind of helps you look inward without external distraction. A lot of you who meditate regularly and follow yogic practices probably don't need something like that. But for me, it is very much an entering of another world or another space. So that also fit with Shadowland, and it fit very particularly with some of the characters and what I was trying to convey. I hope that made sense. Okay. Okay, wait. Number 5. Oh, yes. Why do your characters wear red boots and red shoes? Well, apart from just thinking red boots and red shoes are snappy and they would match glasses, do I have any? No, I don't. I don't actually have red shoes. Maybe I just secretly, you know, harbor the desire to have red shoes to match these. But also, it's a little tiny bit of a shout out to the Wizard of Oz and those red shoes and that yellow brick road journey. So there you go. And let's see, what supplies do you use when making art? Well, that I'm going to assume here the person meant art supplies. And I will say, let's see, I have a marker, I have a moleskin sketchbook, what else do I use? I use watercolor, a lot of different kinds of watercolor, tube watercolor and pan watercolor, and I use actual ink in a very old style technical pen to do my ink renderings on watercolor paper. And what else do I use? I think that's about it. It is done by hand. Clearly it's sketchy, but I also scan it in, and I don't really digitize in correcting anything or adding to it or changing the color on it, but I might adjust noise, like visual noise, from scanning it in, because sometimes you pick up a little bit more of the texture of the paper than you want. But these also go to a really talented graphic designer at Red Feather Mind, Body, and Spirit, and she takes it from there. So those are kind of the art supplies. I think that's what the person meant. And also number 6, which I'm not sure this is a really common question, but I have been asked if I live in a cemetery. I can't believe I just snort laughed. Okay, I don't live in a cemetery. I know it's dark, but that's because this is a very cluttered studio. And it is Shadowland after all. But no, I don't live in a cemetery. I'm sorry. I don't think that's just like outwardly, you know, hilarious. But, you know, maybe, maybe I need to get out and get a little bit more sun. Okay, so those are the questions. Hope you enjoyed them and the answers. And you know what it's time for? No, I'm not actually doing a pick a card. I'm going to draw one card for us all for the upcoming week, okay? Alrighty. Now let me shuffle. Yes, I actually do just shuffle and just pull a card, you know. Alright. Okay. Oh, alright, here we go. It is number 21. It is the World. Woo. This is actually the last card in the Major Arcana. There are 22 cards because the Seeker card or the Fool card, the first card, is 0. So this is actually the 22nd card, and it is the World. So we've got this figure standing in the middle of the world in the circle, holding a wand. Oh, wearing red shoes. Has your red shoes again. What does this mean? There are creatures signifying the 4 elements for me. It is standing in the center of your being. It's not necessarily the world, the globe, although sometimes when people get this card, it means they are going to get out there and travel. I'm going to interpret this card this week for all of us as meaning you're going to start understanding where you fit in the big picture. You're going to understand yourself in relation to others, which, as we generally know, is referred to as insight. It isn't just how you perceive yourself. It is how others are perceiving you, and you kind of go back and forth and check that with yourself. Is that how you're feeling? Are those your values? And is that what you're projecting? Is that how everything is running smoothly? Sometimes, you know, we all joke about the resting face, don't we? And a lot of people will say, you don't look too happy. And that's sometimes is just their stuff. You have a right to look any way you like. So I'm not speaking about, you know, looking for validation and approval from people for how you act, dress, behave. I'm just talking about how you see yourself in relation to your community, friends, family, how they view you, and how you gain insights from relationships. So this looks like a good week to look at relationships. Looking inward occurred on the weekend, as I mentioned. What excellent timing, these cards. They're spooky. And after that reflection, then I guess this following week makes sense that we're going to see ourselves in relationship to others and how we relate. So have a really good week. Looks like the world is yours. Looks like you're going to stand centered in the middle with some funky shoes. It's kind of a nice space to be because it's at the end of the Major Arcana. It also implies that you've done a lot of work to get to this point. So be kind to yourselves, be happy, enjoy life, because that's really important. We're in some tricky times, so stand in the center of that and be joyous. Okay, thank you so much. I have to say thank you to all of you who are watching these videos, who leave comments, who are subscribing. You know, it's much appreciated, believe me, that you're taking the time out of your schedule to watch them. So thank you once again. Have a great week. And until next time, I'll see you.